Alright, looks like 6.5.1 installed. Interesting. I don't know why 6.5.4 wouldn't. The web application is accessible from the desktop shortcut on the core, or everybody actually should be able to access it from their own PCs right now, provided you're connected to VPN.
6.4.1 didn't work because they have 6.5.
Yeah, 6.5.1. That's, or 6.5.4 was the one that I was trying to install. So you're presented with the log on, and you log in with the service account. If you remember, we provided that password during install. And whoops. Once you log in, like I said, this is actually from my PC, this window here. So actually everybody, if you go to, if you punch the host name into Internet Explorer, provided that your browser is set up right, you should be able to get to the web interface.
TeamViewer is using port 80 on that, or mine is. I can't get to it. Not that way.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Alright, so we're going to actually do what we were trying to do before, and we're going to add that standalone satellite. So now that we do that, well, in order to do that, we switch over to System Installation and Settings per Recorder, and it'll bring up all the servers in the system. To add the satellite, we hit the plus button in the top right, and it's going to give you some information down here. Change that to ULAW and hit Add Record. And this box is what contains the information for what we're going to put in the installer for the satellite. It says for the recorder to function properly, you need to tell it the recorder ID, which is 2, and the IP address of the core server, or you can do host name too. Prefer host name because these boxes are set to DHCP, so they could get different IPs all the time. So it's giving you that ID, and we know the host name is lab-NRX core. So going back to the passive satellite, Mark and Winston.
Yeah, let me get back on.
I'm going to use 6.5.1 on this one too, since it seemed to have worked. And we choose just satellite, include the VoIP support, and this is where we enter the information on the screen that we just put in on the core. So our host name is lab core or NRX core, and the recorder ID which it gave us was 2. And we hit next.
Do you only check that box for the IP support?
Check which box?
Include voice support. Do you only check that? Include voice support. Do you only check it on the satellite, or do you check it on the core also?
That checkbox is for satellites only, so you won't be prompted with that if you do a core install.
Okay.
We supply the recorder password. This is the recorder password of the core that we chose during install of the core. And we hit install. I think this one will go quicker since there's less components. Alright, and what we should see, if we navigate away back on the core, if we navigate away from the screen we were just on, and then back, we see that the satellite is now added to the system. I'm going to go ahead and snapshot both of these machines. So the one thing that that I'm not going to be able to show in its entirety is licensing, because we're working with the demo system. But it's actually a pretty important part, unfortunately. I can review it briefly though. I might be able to reference another system on TeamViewer as well. Alright, so it looks like the satellite's back up. It's almost finished with that snapshot. Alright, perfect. So we're pretty much done on the core. There's really not much to do on the core until we start querying for calls. So at this point, this is where we would license the system. Vincent, do you remember me doing any of that while you were up there on that dispatch in New York? Remember we got that key?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw it. I couldn't see much because we were on the customer's laptop and he was sitting in front of it, so I was just like glancing from the side. Now you're on satellite. Okay.
Yeah. Whoa, that's really big.
So you just changed the resolution?
Yeah.
It's hopping all over the screen.
I meant to do this.
That's good, right? Yeah.
Mark and Vincent, there's a machine on TeamViewer called Blue Tree. You should probably connect to that.
Called what?
Blue Tree. I'm going to run through how to license. Yeah.
Which folder is it?
Just do a search for blue in the search window and it'll come right up.
So if your system
type bold.
has a board in it, well, there's two ways to do licensing. You can do it through a USB dongle, or through an actual key, or through a card. If you have the card licensing, you're going to go into the license tool, and this is all done on the satellite, by the way. In this instance, Blue Tree has one card in it, and it does 10 channels. You will click on that card and hit license, and you'll be provided with a license key in an email somewhere prior to the install. You should be given a license key, and this is where we put it in here. You can copy and paste it, and then hit the set license button. It'll reboot the board. It takes a couple minutes. But if you do not have a board, I'll show you how to license that in just a second. Alright, Mark and Vincent, we're going to go back to the satellite.
Yep. I'm with you, man.
If you don't have a board and you have a USB dongle, you license the system after you apply the firmware. So we're going to go ahead and firmware the satellite. I've already downloaded the firmware from the download center. That's these two right here. I have two different types of firmware for our particular install. And one is Cisco Call Manager and the other one is Cisco Gateway. The difference between these two is that one records off of IP or MAC address, and that would be Cisco VoIP, and Cisco Gateway actually records based off of extension. But there's some additional things that you have to keep in mind when doing Cisco Gateway. But we're just, for right now, going to do Cisco VoIP. And firmwaring a system is pretty easy. It's just a matter of copying some files to specific locations. But first we want to stop the services on the satellite. And we we go to the C drive. You guys might want to write this down. It's C drive, program files x86, Cybertech, recorder, and Parrot DSC. I always back up the old DLL. We have to move the DLL to this location, so we have the Parrot VoIP 0. So I always back up the old one. Then we can delete it, and we'll move the new one over. Now there's an ini file in here as well. That goes in C program data, Cybertech, ini files, and VoIP. Again, back up the old ini file. And move the ini file from firmware over to that location as well. Oops.
You just copy the old one onto the new one?
Yeah, it really doesn't matter for a base install, but it's good practice
Yeah.
anyway. So we're going to start it back up,
Yeah.
and you're going to notice, you should notice the ini file start changing in file size as it comes back up. It's already changing. Now without a license in the system, once you firmware a satellite, you'll have the demo license, which will give you 4 channels, and that's all we're going to be stuck with for our lab. And this generally fails to start 3 times, and then it starts up. And there's our 4 licenses, or our 4 channels. Now in the event, like I said, if you have the USB dongle licensing, there's one additional piece of software that you can get off the download center. It's called, it's some sort of driver. I think it's called like a Sentinel driver or something like that, not to be confused with Sentinel from NIM. But once you have that installed, we go into the ini file and we look for, where is it? Litcom mode. And we change that to 128.
Now, what is that?
That is...
I don't remember doing that.
No, you probably wouldn't have done that in training in Denver because they probably had card licensing. This is
Yeah, they
mostly
did,
for VMs, where we would put a USB dongle in the virtual host and connect to it, or they even have this network USB device called USB Anywhere that we've used on some installs.
Yeah.
It's all virtual, but either way, it's for USB licensing. There's a little, it looks like a thumb drive, but it's not. We put that in the system, and that's how it licenses it. But once we have it in there, in the ini file, we change litcom mode to 128. After we restart the services, we'll have some additional lines down here for license string and license checksum.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, and
Okay, so I was wondering earlier when I was doing the one testing where the license string and the checksum number come from, and that's the part that I did not know about.
A lot of times they may already come on. If you're doing an install with card licensing, the licensing may already be installed on the card. You may not have to do it.
Yeah.
But sometimes if you're doing an upgrade or you're putting in a new card, there should be an email or a text document somewhere with the new license string in it. And if you're doing USB dongle, there most certainly will be an email or a text file with your license string in it.
Yeah.
So after you change the LitCom mode up here to 128, you save it, restart the services, and you'll get 2 additional lines down here where you enter the string and the
now is this the same as excuse me, same as the older version where when you're using the parent programmer tool, you can actually copy it from there too and just edit the INI file yourself if you got if you pulled it from the file. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. So you could manually just copy and paste it in here, but the way you've done it, where you're changing the COM port, it's going to automatically pull it in.
No. No, there's no board in here. There's nowhere that it could pull a license key from.
Yeah, it's a virtual board. So, and we actually use real boards. But I'm saying if you were using a real board, you could actually, because we were manually editing the INI file, and you can get that from using the program tool and just copying and pasting that stuff. So.
Okay.
Like I said, it's older version anyway, so
All right. So after we have the system licensed in firmware, we're ready to configure it for recording. Now, we have a couple lab phones, and in this firmware we record by IP or MAC address. You guys don't have to worry about this stuff. So these are the phones we have set up for the lab. Extension 1000 and 1001 are physical phones that we have in the office at auto answer. And actually, I don't know what's up with the 1001. That thing hasn't been working for the past couple of days. But 1000 is always up, and it auto answers. So if you install the Cisco IP communicator and you call extension 1000, it's going to call this phone and it's going to pick up. So what we want to do is we want to record this phone. So the customer would provide you with the IP address or the MAC address. The IP of the phone is 192.168.0.185, and the MAC address, if you're familiar with how Cisco SEP numbers work, the SEP number is the same as the MAC address. Can you guys still hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I actually pulled up my Cisco IP phone.
Okay.
All
right. So we know the IP address is 192.168.0.185. And the way we configure these phones for recording is through that same INI file that we were just in. And of course, I closed that window. So we go back to it, see program data, Cybertech, INI files, and VoIP, and we open up the INI file. The first thing we actually have to do is specify which NICs that we're using for recording. We have 2 NICs. Only one of them is accepting the passive spans. The way we do that is in the INI file we have a list of found adapters, and we have adapter 0 and adapter 1. We take we copy everything after the equal sign from found adapters, and we move them up to selected adapters. I'm just going to do both because I'm actually not sure which one of these is the passive. It won't hurt if you add in both. And then from there, further down the list, we have this is where we enter the IPs for the phones. We know that phone is 192.168.0.185. And that's it. We just stop services. I don't know if it matters if you save it while the services are running. I always stop them and then save the ini file and then start it back up.
From what I remember in class, you can do it while they're running, but it doesn't take effect until you restart it anyway, so you might as well.
So we stop, save it, close it, and start it back up. So I'm going to bring up my IP communicator, and as soon as it senses IP or traffic from that IP address on the span, the channel will turn green. So we know the span's working. So when we call that phone, and in case you missed it earlier, once you install the IP communicator, it'll provision you a new extension. So you can go ahead and download it from the project site and install it, and it'll provision you a new one. I got 1004 here. So we call 1000, it auto answers, and the line turns red for record.
So technically, I have my communicator up as well. It should actually show 2 channels, or is mine not configured to this particular setup?
I'm sorry, say that
It should
again?
be, right? I said I have my communicator up as well. It should actually show line status 2 as green as well, which would be my phone.
Why wouldn't it show
Right?
it?
Yeah, well, it's not. I mean,
It's not showing it because we don't have that configured in here.
oh, you didn't put the IP address in
Nope.
of my phone. So, yeah, I got you. Okay.
Can
you get that information off the phone? I was looking through the settings.
Off the soft phone? I don't know, maybe. I think it's the same IP as your computer anyway.
Oh, okay.
But
yeah,
what is your extension?
1005.
1005. Let's refresh this. So that's your IP address for 1005.
Okay.
Let's see if we can add it.
Right. Yeah.
Was that 192.168.200? Was that 13?
Yeah.
I'm going to hang up this call before we do that. Oh, I already did hang up. Okay. And we'll save. And restart the services. Now, if we make a call from your phone to this 1000 extension, and we have them both configured, what do you think we'll see?
Well, it should just go red. Well, because yours is the only one configured now, and then mine will be as soon as it restarts. So there should only be 2 active green channels, and then when I pick up and make a call, it should go red on channel 2.
Will channel, if you're calling extension 1000, will channel 1 go active?
Well, is your phone channel 1000? I mean,
No, my extension is 1004.
1004.
Right.
Right.
And that's what we...
So No, I mean yours would still say green because that's your line one. I mean your channel one, right?
No, I'm not
Yeah.
channel 1. Channel 1 is the lab phone.
Oh, is the 1000? I
Yes.
gotcha. Okay, then you're right. Both of them would go red.
Okay.
Yeah. I was thinking that your extension was 1004, but you have not put yours in
No.
there. It's annoying.
And channel 2
Don't you
goes
have to
live.
add it to that selected adapters?
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry. I thought you had to add that IP to the selected adapters.
We add the IPs of the phones in the ini file under IP to channel.
Right.
So this one here is Mark's phone, and this one here is the lab Cisco phone that we have in the office. It's an actual physical phone. So we see that both lines are green, so we know that traffic for both of them are spanned. And if we get Mark to call channel 1000, we see both of them are red.
Both are live, yeah. Yeah, it is.
So if we go back to the core now, we should see some recorded calls in there. I'll just do the basic query for last week. And there's our calls. You can see they say demo 49, 48, 49. You only get 50 calls on the demo system.
Yeah.
Then you have to revert back.
There's also places where you can identify the channels and the extension numbers and all that.
Yeah.
But we're not going to worry about that right
No.
now.
No,
Yeah.
not right now. What I do want to show you guys is something that's interesting. Me and Eric Eliason found this the other day, where we have the ability to record by MAC address as well. So we're going to set up Mark's phone, which is on the other side of a router, our router, to record by MAC address rather than IP. I mean, we know that the information for Mark's phone is being spanned. Anybody want to take a stab at what's going to happen?
Well, you actually did your extension, 1004.
I did?
Yeah,
Oh,
pretty sure.
yeah, it was.
Yes, you did.
Whoops. Good catch.
So, we're going to test it. Let us test it right.
So we know the information from Mark's phone is being spanned. But I'm going to tell you right now it's not going to record. It's not going to record Mark's phone. Does anybody know why?
Because I'm on the other side of a router that does those ports aren't allowed.
Well, we already know your traffic is getting through, so it's port blockage isn't happening.
Okay.
We know no blockage is happening.
Okay.
And this is a passive span anyway, and there's not going to be any ports. There's not going to be any ports to worry about. But this is something to keep in mind. Let me restart these services. And just
Well, yeah, you got me curious now as to why it wouldn't, because the MAC address should be just as good as the IP address.
Who was that?
I said that you got me curious now because the MAC address should be just as good as the IP address.
Are we receiving the MAC address from that side? Or just the IP?
This is a little bit of a networking lesson.
It's a trick question.
First, I just want to make sure it's not going to record so I don't look stupid. I'm like 99% sure it's not going to record. so to add a MAC, actually, I guess I really didn't describe this. There's two sections: IP to channel and MAC to channel. And we have 4 channels because that's what our license is. 4 channels. So don't go putting an IP address on channel 1 up here and then a MAC address on channel 1 down here. I don't know what'll happen, but it probably is going to cause problems.
It can't be good.
Yeah, so make sure that if you are for some reason doing a mixture of IPs and MAC addresses, which you probably won't be, make sure you do them on the appropriate channels. This thing up now.
And if you've got 8,000 channels, good luck.
Yeah, that would really suck. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine doing. I think you can do like 400 channels of VoIP per server. I couldn't imagine keeping track of that. So we see that there's
498.
your channel 2 went inactive. Go ahead and make a phone call, Mark.
Mm-hmm. So we're picking up the call from extension 1000, but it's still not going to record anything at all.
So there's some network trickery going on here. When packets flow through a router or a firewall, for instance, actually maybe not always a firewall, but at least a router, the MAC address takes on the MAC address of the router and not the phone.
Yeah,
I can even demonstrate that to you. So we're going to load up Wireshark and we're going to take a look at that.
That's something I definitely did not know. Of course, I'm not router certified. I know a little bit about them, but old routers. Principle's still the same. But
Oops, I think I wanted to do both. Oh, I did do both. Alright, so what we're going to do is I'm going to ping our router. We'll filter by ICMP, which is pings. And we'll stop. So here we see the router 192.168.0.1, and this is the IP address of the satellite. And if we come down here in Wireshark, we see the IP address of the router on the left and the MAC address right above it. It ends in 64.84. Okay.
yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to send a ping through the router this time out to Google. And this time we see the Google's destination IP address, which it matched here, 74.125.228.83, but the MAC address is that of our router.
So every device that comes through the router will pick up the MAC address of the router?
Correct. So if your satellite is on the same switch as the phones, probably won't have to worry about that if you're using a MAC address. You won't really have a problem. But depending on where the customer taps that span, if it taps it at a point where the phone traffic has already crossed the router, the MAC address is no longer going to be that of the phone. It's going to be that of the router. That make sense?
Yeah, you would probably only find that in where it would actually work in smaller locations where you really just don't have a router.
I ran into it twice.
Yeah.
So,
So
it definitely happens.
just to be safe, really just pretty much use the IP address is the best way to go, no matter what.
Well, Eric Eliason will
Sometimes you can,
attest
sometimes you
that
can't.
that's not a... Well, we had to use a different recording method for that because we couldn't use a MAC address because I
Right.
believe it was in a routed environment, and we couldn't use IP address either because the phones were DHCP. They would always pick up a new IP address.
Oh. Now, can't you put in a range somewhere in the INI file?
No, and you can only specify one at a time.
Okay, you cannot do a range.
Nope.
Right. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I didn't think so. But.
So does
All
anybody?
right. So how do you get around it?
We'll get to that in just a second. For right now, does anybody want to try to record? Does anybody who has the Cisco IP communicator installed, do they want to try to configure the satellite to record their extension? Mark, you want to give it a shot?
Sure. What was my IP address again? Oops. Is it 192?
Yeah, that's it.
Oops. That is in the wrong
That's
place,
in the
though.
wrong spot. I was going to let you do it, too.
Yeah, I know.
Keith, do you have the IP communicator installed?
It's still not showing my phone.
So your call's already up?
Yeah, there it goes. As soon as I ended the call, let me redial it, and now we're cooking. Okay, so because the services weren't up, it ignored the call completely. All right, and in call and there it is. Well.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
1005 to 1000.
Right.
We got it on channel 2 and channel 1.
Yeah.
So Keith, how well were you paying attention?
Yes, Jared. Yes, teacher.
How well were you paying attention?
How I was half-heartedly paying attention.
You think you know how to configure your phone to record?
Configure the phone itself?
Yeah, the one that...
Or within NRX?
Within NRX.
Yeah, you just have the IP address into that file that you have open.
Alright, go ahead, do it.
I have no clue. I wasn't paying that close attention. That's what you get paid for, Jared.
So first of all, we need to find the IP address of your phone, which, do you still have that up?
Which is actually the same IP address that your computer is.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I think. What's your extension, Keith?
1008.
So yours is 200.4. And what I'm going to do is I am going to pass control to Keith. You have control now? So go find that ini file. Because you were paying attention, you remember where the ini file was, right?
Don't be a dork.
Here, let me get you started. I'll find it for you. I can show you where it's at. And I'm gonna.
See, Mark was paying attention.
Yes. Well, yeah. I'm actually gonna do this. Whoops.
You're gonna show the in files.
That's not. Yeah. This is if you do this right off the bat, this is just saves a lot of trouble. So I'll also do that too. Alright. So it's under program data, cyber tech. Any files, VoIP, and it is the any file. And then
there it is.
Put in your IP address. Go ahead.
I didn't know there was going to be a test.
Pop quiz.
Here, I'll do it for you.
I started it.
.4, is that it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Save the file, and then close that, and basically just stop and start the services. And when that comes up, we should show channel 3. Oh, you didn't believe me.
No, I didn't. For some reason, I did not think it was 4.
One more time should do it. Close. 1. Yes. And there we go.
All right, Keith, go ahead and call 1000.
What is one? Who is 1000?
It is just
That's his lab.
there we go. 1000 is just a phone that's sitting in the office that auto answers.
That phone calls me all the time.
Funny. Sorry. Didn't mean to laugh at you, Vince. It auto answers. Apparently, it auto calls too.
Yeah, it does. Very much.
All right, so we should have recordings now. You can hang it up, Keith. All right, so now we'll rerun the query over here.
I'm back on the
And
core.
there we go. Oh, yeah, there's channel 3 twice. Okay. Very nice.
Anybody else want to try it?